Hello, assalamu alaikum everyone. This is Dr. Naeem Hayat, and we are here in the week 8. So today we will be discussing about the data analysis. So as we cover from the start, the idea generation, then the gap analysis, then coming up with the question, then the research design of the data protocol or the research questionnaire. Then now we will be discussing about the data analysis. So today in the data analysis, we will be talking about and we try to understand the research analysis that is attached to the research design because we know that there are different research objective on which we design our research. So the analysis much vary. So that's why I'm not going in much detail of the analysis of each and every type actually giving some kind of overview as well as the advice that how to actually add some value in the data analysis, what the core analysis we are doing. Understand the sampling design process and how to report because that's actually quite area of concern for many of the editor, the high rank journal that they are looking that we must establish and expose all the sampling technique or the method and the contact with the respondent. So it must be elaborated. Sample size calculation, it is also a critical area because many editor are actually concerned that the sample size are not enough with the hypothesis that we are actually projecting. So it must be having enough sample size so that we can claim that the analysis or the outcome are actually providing enough power to the analysis. We also actually touch the common method issues or the biases that come in mostly the primary or the survey-based data research design and what are the remedies there and how to overcome. Then I will talk about the pre and post hoc analysis covering the common method bias in quantitative data analysis. And then lastly, we discuss about the qualitative research process and qualitative data analysis broadly and not very narrowly. So these are the five learning objectives that we like to cover. As we know in the research design, so there are three most common research design that we are dealing with. That is descriptive research, exploratory research, or causal research. So descriptive research, where actually we try to only expose who, what, where, when, and how to actually answer or exhibit a situation. Exploratory, where actually we try to expose and explore a new area that may be an ambiguous issue and problem that how it emerged and how we can understand. It's mostly exploratory. Causal research, where actually we try to understand the relationship between two or more than two variables. One may be independent, dependent, or maybe many independent or dependent variables, or otherwise few independent and multiple dependent variables. So the research analysis vary across the different research design that we are actually willing to. But the core issue that I like to highlight that is the that analysis vary based on the research objective or the research question at hand. But there are some common issues that we need to understand and to implement in our research and then implement in our findings. One issue that while we are actually writing the research method or the research and methodology part of the paper, sampling design. So sampling design, as we much aware, I think most of us very much have a clear understanding between the population and sample. So we must justify that how our sample is representative of the population. So many of time we come across that why you contact a certain sample or why you think a sample is actually a representative of the population. So these type of the question asked by the reviewer or from the editor. So we must actually carefully answer it beforehand when we are actually documenting the research methodology part. So we must describe what is the population, uh, what is the actually the sample, how we actually make some sampling technique, its maybe probability or non-probability, and then how we conduct them. So as we know that in sampling technique, we must have an understanding of the list of the respondent or the population member, and we can actually have the access to that list. Otherwise, we can actually have a form this kind of list where we can have equal chances of selection to be provided by the population member. So simple random sampling, as we know that we can actually have a list available and we can actually select anyone. Systematic sampling will create a simple that maybe every third or every nth sample can be selected. Stratified, so we make the groups. Then the cluster sampling, so based on the geographical area or multi-stage cluster sampling where we don't have the list, but actually the rigorous sample selection actually make it a more probability to be given to the every sample. Non-probability sampling, where we mostly don't have the list or are having no understanding about the sample, sample population size. Then the convenience, again, let's say we can have the convenience, the data collection, judgment. I think some people are good to answer, then snowball, again, you had one a good sample, then actually you ask advise or propose someone can actually deliver the uh, response, and then the quota that actually again we make some understanding that how many sample can be collected from certain geographical location or maybe the position the people hold and the job position holder. So these kind of the quota, which is a non-probability sampling. So we must clearly describe the sampling technique that is applied, the population and the sample, because in the methodology part, many paper are very weak and that create a bad impression in the reader's head that the paper is not good enough to be selected or may not be able to test reject. Uh, the issue that actually I think is very important sample size calculation. So there are many tools or many method available for the sample size calculation. Krieger Morgan formula or the table is there, and then actually we understand if we have more than 100,000 more than that sample, so 387 is a sample size. If we have that, so we can actually. There are other analysis techniques which ask a certain sample size to be there, like say t-test. So it must be having a 30 sample size, but in multivariate and regression analysis, so we must have enough sample based on the path we are actually willing to evaluate. So what I find very powerful tool that is G power. So this is the version actually I'm using 3.197. I actually can show you how to use it because I find nearly I have more than 80 paper in different international openings. So I never find the issue that the G power analysis can be contested. So I am actually giving you the idea. So this is the G power, and mostly when we are actually willing to calculate the sample size, so we go for the F test, and here we actually go for the a priori. Like you can say beforehand, we try to understand that what will be the sample size. Normally, the linear multiple regression where the fixed are increased that we are willing for. So it actually gives us an understanding for the power that we can achieve with the number of the samples. Okay, so the effective F scale or the effect size that we are looking for, that is moderate 0.15. So certainly when we are looking for a large effect size, so it is 3.5, so things may be changed. We are actually testing at a 0.005. This is the number of predictor, I mean the input variable that we are using. So normally the number is same, like you can say we are using 7 input variables. So We provide the effect size, we provide the confidence level that we are actually suggesting to achieve, and that is actually the 1 minus beta, that is 95%, the independent variable or a predictor variable that we are using, we just calculate. So it gives us the idea that the sample size we must have, that is 153, to achieve an actual power of 95%. So in this way, actually, for mostly my 80 plus paper, I use this technique to actually report that the sample size that we require and how to justify that sample size we must have to actually have the power in our analysis. So it is a very handy software. So that's freely available, and you actually can use it for multiple analysis. It is the first thing that you can use as a power analysis to evaluate the required sample size with based on the input variable, a number of the input variable. Like you can say, if you have 11 input variable, how much sample size you must have. So it tells that 178 is the sample you must have to actually have a 95% of the power in your analysis. So if you're looking for the large effect size, so then it is same. So the sample size is actually 83. So in this way, you can actually have the idea that how much power you want to achieve with the number of the sample that you must have. So you can have this analysis utilized and report. To my understanding, it actually quite helpful to report and to convince the editor that actually you perform what is required in the sample size calculation. So sample size calculation with this T power formula, the software, or maybe at least use PJ Morgan or the other effective tools that are available to justify the sample size that we are having to implement. Because here you see that it is not based on the population size, but it is based on the power that we want to achieve, as well as based on the independent variable that we are in the study. So it is somewhat similar to the Hare advice that Hare et al. In 2017, 2019, 2021. So they are suggesting that you must actually have the path multiplied by 2, that how many paths you have in the study, so multiply by 10. So then actually you can have a effective sample size for your study. So at least you must use one technique to report, but I always suggest to use the G power, which I found very accepting by the editors, so that we can justify the sample size calculation. Uh, so in this way, actually, whatever you are actually adding, or what I'm suggesting, it actually increase the validity or the understanding that the research is designed in an appropriate manner, and the editor have a confidence that things are done in a right way. So that is the first thing. Then the sample size calculation. So certainly before go for actual analysis, because I told you that I will not be discussing the actual analysis because every analysis require a different kind of setting and discussion. So I'm just actually giving you some of the thought that how you actually enhance your analysis with the pre-analysis. Some of the pre-analysis, if you utilize or add, so certainly it create a kind of validity and the precondition in the edited mind that the things are done in a right way. Report the way the data is collected. So it's very important. We must actually explicitly, openly report everything that how the data is collected. Scale utilized is very important, mostly in the quantitative study where the survey are utilized. That all the scale that we utilize, we must report their source as well as their uh, validity or the reliability score. And if we change some of the items, so then it will be correlatory factor analysis as well. But mostly when we are using the TLS SEM, so the factor analysis and the path analysis are done in one go. So actually, it's a second generation of statistical analysis. So we don't need to do the exploratory exploratory factor analysis. So there is actually a cross loading table in the PLS that actually effectively gives us the factor analysis. Another issue that is actually what I found very much effective report the common method bias issue in the design stage as well as in the analysis stage, that how you overcome them. So it effectively make an understanding that the research is designed in the best appropriate manner. Like you can say, it is my practice that when I'm dealing with the common method bias, so I always have a different Likert scale for my input variable and outcome variable. So I'll give you one example. Like if you are having three independent variable and you are using the five Likert scale, and you have one independent variable, so you must use the seven Likert scale. So it is advised from the Podesta 2003 article and as well as 2012 article that in a design stage we must manage the common method bias, because normally if the scale are all equal or the all same, so it creates a redundancy in among the respondent that they don't see or they don't read the question. So that's why you must have a different Likert scale. So it is my advice and I'm doing it. Then you must have a different Likert scale for your input variable and the output variable. So it destroy the kind of leniency as well as you can say a monotony. So they follow the same. It is in the design stage. Uh, Similarly, in the analysis stage, so there are few analyses that are available to evaluate the issue or gravity of the common method bias. So one is actually we do the exploratory confirmatory factor analysis, and if for a single factor, and for a single factor, if the factor score is less than 40, in some paper it is reported at less than 50. So we can actually claim that no common method bias issue is uh, there in the paper, in the analysis. Another is that we create a common factor, and actually all these input variable as well as independent variable are actually regressed on this common method. And if there is no actually positive or you can say significant relationship exist with the common newly created factor, so we can actually claim that there is no issue of the common method bias. Another issue that is also there, that is I discuss in endogeneity, that is also part of the common method bias. Another thing that I usually report univariate normality and multivariate normality in the paper, because it justifies that multivariate normality is achieved or not, so that we can actually go for the final analysis. So these are a part of the pre-analysis. So what I found in many paper where the multiple variables are there and yet they are utilizing the univariate normality, which is wrong. So when we have more than one variable, uh, input variable are more than one and independent variable are more than one. So you must utilize the multivariate normality. So multivariate normality and the reporting of it is very important. So mostly when people are using the PLS, so they must report the multivariate normality and that justification that variate normality is not achieved, so they can the PLS SAM. I can actually suggest you one way, that is actually the power analysis. So it is actually online test that doesn't require much of the effort. You just actually upload your data and it actually give you the multivariate normality analysis. So there are multiple tools available, but I'm actually giving you the idea that from this paper, you can actually assess multivariate normality of your data, and you need to just upload your data file, and it actually analyze it with value, and then actually you can report. If your data value normality is not there, so I can show you my paper where actually I'm already reporting data normality so that it effectively make an understanding that the data is normal or non-normal, so that you can create. So normally we use this web power psychostat.org. Hopefully you can see now. It is actually a web tool, univariate and multivariate. Soon as you just need to upload your data file, maybe in any format, in SPSS or Excel or CSV. So you can upload and just click calculate, so it gives you the number. And if you go into any of my papers, so you can find, so it is actually the way to write the score, and the score is actually less than that. So it means that they are not achieve the multivariate. So I must add one section to describe the multivariate normality in my every quantitative paper. So it creates a kind of validity in the reviewer's mind that what we are suggesting is quite okay. Okay, coming back to our presentation. Another issue that actually I always try to highlight and actually add in from my quantitative paper, endogeneity analysis. Endogeneity analysis that again, if we go into the relationship, so we always create a two-way relationship between the variable, and we don't know that which variable comes first. Like you can say, we are proposing that there is an independent variable that create a dependent variable are related to the independent variable related to the dependent variable, but the endogeneity may be there. Endogeneity come like maybe there are actually external factors that are affecting the relationship. That is one issue. Another is that the relationship may be effective reversed. That maybe the dependent variable is actually related to the independent variable. So that's why endogeneity becomes a very problematic, and we can't say the cause and effect. So that's why it is actually mostly only in Web of Science paper we add this justification or the endogeneity analysis, where we claim that the endogeneity is not an issue and we can actually go with our normal analysis. So endogeneity analysis right now in the SAM Smart PLS, they add the bias analysis or the error analysis, and that error analysis actually giving that the error term that that may emerge in the data analysis in terms of the error, and we use these error to actually predict the outcome. And if all the paths with the error on the outcome are insignificant, so we can claim that the errors are not related to the dependent variable, so we can justify the endogeneity. I actually give you only a simple meaning, but if you go into the literature, so endogeneity is actually quite a critical issue, and a very respected journal always actually ask us to report and claim that the endogeneity issue is handled. Otherwise, there are actually two-step process for the handling the endogeneity. So normally endogeneity is an issue, and we can actually must validate that what we pronounce or what we are saying the independent variable, they are the real independent variable that creating the dependent variable. So these are some of the pre-analysis we add, so that create a kind of a confidence in the mind of the viewer, editor. So we as a writer or researcher are doing our part to describe and create research in a way that mostly they accept. Other thing that we need to add some post hoc analysis as well. Post hoc mean after doing the pre-analysis, then we go for the main principal analysis, and then we must perform some post hoc analysis, mean afterward, that create a kind of clarity, justification, and confirmation, so that the analysis are done in a right way. What I am actually saying, certainly these things we learn over the period of time. So one way that is Boffarani correction, because in normal social science we have multiple paths in our model. So normally our sample size is not enough. So Boffarani correction is actually giving a sense of each and every path power in post hoc. That what is the actual power of the path if there are multiple paths available. So again, normally we do it in the G power. So in the G power, if we go into the, that's priori for the actually sample size calculation in post hoc. So in a post hoc analysis, we actually justify that what is the actually the power that we already achieved. So in this power analysis, we actually give the correlation regression. A linear regression, multiple regression, random model. That is post hoc compute achieved power. So the correlation that we may have, so we can calculate and it actually give us the achieved power, that what is the achieved or actual power there, not the power of the F score. So in this way, we can actually report this post hoc Bofrani correction, that what is the exact rate of the power that exists or the relationship that exists between the power. So this is one of the post hoc multiple comparison correction that we actually must report. Sometime we only report when it is asked. But again, if you think that it can add value, so you can add this kind of post hoc analysis. Another way of the post hoc analysis, that's predictive analysis that is right now available in the PLS and a smart PLS, that actually it have a predictive value that which model is actually more able to predict your linear model or your uh, smart PLS model. So it is actually a machine learning based analysis where actually it can create or can predict the future value based on collected data. And it also compare the model, the PLS model with the or linear model, and it can actually create a justification. Your linear model is predicting describing more error than your linear model. If your linear model is not enough, so then it can create a justification. Your predictive analysis is good. PLS SAM is a good model to predict than your linear. So these kind of the post hoc analysis we can add. So right now we are adding in many papers that the predictive analysis that is from the PLS. So it is a machine-based learning which can predict the future value based on the data that we have. So these are some of the pre and post hoc analysis if you add. So it create a kind of justification and confidence in the mind of the editor and reviewer that you as a researcher design a good research and do most of the precondition or the pre-analysis that actually create a confidence in the editor and reviewer. Then actually for the qualitative study, I can actually add few of the advice, but again, I think so many advice are already available. That we need to understand that qualitative study process flow is an interactive, iterative process that actually there are multiple stages and we need to work on multiple stages at the same time. That the idea, the literature review, the design, the data collection, analysis, and from that analysis, we can need to go back to the literature review at some time to the design and sometime to the data collection as well. Then the dissemination. So there are actually the 6-step process in the qualitative study, and we must report it in the methodology section of our qualitative study that how we are doing the different aspect of the process of the qualitative study. So in the analysis stage, the only we need to actually discuss about the qualitative analysis, the 3-step process of the qualitative study analysis, that is data reduction, data display, conclusion, and verification. In the data reduction, which is actually started as we are transcribing the interview, so that are the qualitative data. So whatever the data we have, we must be actually make it manageable so that we actually doing a bit of data reduction. But again, we need to be careful that we may not skip or may not eliminate the many important data in that stage. So transcribing is one of the activity where we are actually performing the data reduction and make it more manageable for us to analyze in a later stage. After recording the interview, transcribing is the next step, require listening, patience, and careful editing. Uh, so it's very important that we have to have take the note, maybe record a video record the interview, then actually transcribe it. Right now, the software are available where actually you can transcribe easily. So it may take 1 hour interview takes 7 to 6 hours or maybe more than that make the actual transcription. So because if you have been involved in the interview, so you may understand many of the things and you need to transcribe in a more accurate manner that it can be utilized by the other researchers who are involved in the research activity so that it is actually a teamwork. So maybe many people involved in transcribing the different data. So you must have a common language and a common understanding that clarity, accuracy, and the reliability must remain. Similarly, if you are involved in a focus group discussion, so maybe 5 to 6 people who are involved in a discussion, so the transcribing may require more than 20 hours. So it's very hectic, but again, because the data reduction is the step one in the data analysis for the qualitative study. So many people who I actually work with when I ask for the data transcription, so mostly very few actually transcribe in appropriate manner, and that create a problem in the later on stages. So what I suggest always, you must have a full transcription of the interview or the data that you collect. for your qualitative study. Then the data display. So data display is actually a kind of the first stage of analysis after the transcription, where actually we sit together and read and actually read thoroughly to actually understand and then actually make the child theme, then the parent theme, or maybe emergent theme that we can actually create. And again, if you are having more than one researcher who are actually making the themes, then actually you must have a consensus in theme building, or maybe your theme can be validated by the other researcher. Then creation of the initial coding for the entire transcript, and that code remains same over the period of the analysis. And then you can actually make the multiple code, and then actually you can from the multiple code create the child theme, the parent theme, or intermediate theme. So these must be reported in your methodology that how you actually transcribe and how you actually make the code and the Excel coding and then the transcription lead to the creation of the child and the parent theme, and how many researchers are involved in analysis stages. So in the data display, that's very important, and maybe you can say you need to create a kind of a flow chart of the code that you create, how many code, how many transcriptions are there, how many researchers are involved, how many themes are generated at the initial stage, how many themes are submerged, are eliminated because they have a similar meaning, then how many child and parent themes are emerged, and that may form the final display of the model or the outcome that you achieve. Conclusion and verification, grouping the code. So parent theme actually and the child theme must be actually linked, and we must actually display that how child theme can be grouped as a parent. Visualize the code and explain the content. So there are several ways to describe the cluster tree, word frequency, relevant phrases, so that actually create a kind of verification as well as the conclusion that you perform the data analysis, a qualitative data analysis in a most appropriate manner, and no themes are the actually the understanding are missed. So in this way, what I actually suggest mostly in qualitative studies, so when we are actually writing the discussion part that we'll discuss in the next week as well, in the discussion part, so we must actually reflect on the already available literature, that how what our understanding or our paper or our work is suggesting is already available in some way, or we are actually coming up with a new understanding. So similarly, in a analysis part, sorry, discussion part, analysis and discussion part in a qualitative study, so we must actually add some literature to justify that our understanding or our outcome is actually something new, or it is actually already established in the literature, so that in this way you can actually contrast and justify your new inclusion to the knowledge and literature. So it's a kind of verification. The verification we can actually perform with the literature understanding or adding some literature. And another way that we need to actually create a kind of consistency in our themes or the code generation, so that it create understanding in mind of the reviewer that we perform in the best way. The codes are generated and how the meanings can be extracted from the code and the themes later on. Okay, so this is all for today. I actually don't want to go into detail in the main analysis, qualitative or quantitative, because these analyses are much you people aware of. And certainly, I'm just actually adding some of the bit to the top, so that these attributes, if added, it can create a more value in our writing and a justification for the reviewer to accept our argument and to create a justification that we perform the analysis and report the analysis in a most appropriate manner. So today we are able to recover the different research design and how the analysis are linked with that, with the research design, sampling design process, the sample size calculation, some of the post and pre pre and post hoc analysis that we actually need to add in the quantitative data analysis, and similarly some of the qualitative research process and data analysis steps that we need to take up and actually report in our research finding a research article so that we can create a clarification and justification in the mind of the reviewer that we did our part test. And so that's all for the day. So I will be here for next 2 3 minutes. If you have any questions, so please feel free to ask. So that's all for the day. So I am here for your call. Okay, so no questions. So that's all for the day. So hopefully you have some understanding what we try to achieve today for our paper writing journey. So hopefully to see you again in the next week with the next topic that is actually adding the discussion in our research writing. So thank you all for joining us today. So take care, bye, and have a nice week ahead of you.
Thank you, Dr.
Thank
Assalamualaikum.
you. Walaikum assalam.